It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon at Willow and Pine, a small, independently owned bookstore nestled in the heart of Savannah, Georgia. The store's soft amber lights bathed the shelves in a warm glow, and the scent of aged paper and freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air. Emma, a young woman in her late 20s, sat behind the counter, absently flipping through the pages of an old novel. Business had been slow, and she worried about the store's future. What she didn't know was that the door would soon creak open to reveal a visitor whose presence would change everything. Morgan Freeman, dressed in a simple navy sweater and a flat cap, stepped quietly into the bookstore. His presence was unassuming, but his familiar voice and kind demeanor exuded a quiet magnetism. Emma glanced up and froze for a moment. It was him. Yet Morgan offered only a soft smile and a polite nod as he began to browse the shelves. He didn't seem like a celebrity here, just a man seeking comfort in the scent of old books and forgotten stories. As Morgan moved through the aisles, he noticed the frayed carpets and empty chairs where book clubs once gathered. He watched Emma subtly adjust the price tags on books, lowering them just enough to entice customers, but not enough to cut too deeply into their already thin profits. Her quiet resilience struck him. He approached the counter with a worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird in hand. "A classic choice," he said warmly. Emma, flustered, thanked him and rang up the sale. But Morgan wasn't finished. "Tell me," he began, "how long have you been fighting this battle?" Emma hesitated but found herself sharing the story. Her family had owned the bookstore for over 3 decades, but rising rents and the dominance of online retailers threatened to shut them down. She worked double shifts, hosted free events, and even sold homemade candles just to keep the doors open. Morgan listened intently, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. He admired people who fought for things that mattered, and this bookstore wasn't just a business. It was a sanctuary for stories and souls alike. Morgan smiled gently and leaned in. "Would you mind if I bought a few books?" he asked. Emma, relieved, nodded enthusiastically. But Morgan wasn't talking about a few books. Within minutes, he began stacking dozens of novels, classics, children's stories, and poetry collections onto the counter. Emma watched in disbelief as the pile grew. "Sir, this is too much," she started. Morgan chuckled softly. "You can't ever have too many stories. I think I'll donate them to local schools. But that's not all." After paying for the mountain of books, Morgan handed Emma a neatly folded check. She opened it slowly, her breath catching when she saw the number. $25,000. Her eyes filled with tears. "This isn't just a gift," Morgan said. "Consider it an investment in stories yet to be told. Use it to breathe life back into this place." Emma was speechless, clutching the check to her chest. Morgan simply smiled, tipped his hat, and turned toward the door. By the end of the day, the story of Morgan Freeman's act of kindness had spread throughout Savannah. Customers who hadn't visited Willow and Pine in years began stopping by, eager to support the bookstore that had been given a second chance. Local media picked up the story, and soon people from all over the country were ordering books online, leaving messages of encouragement. Donations poured in, not just in money, but in letters, handmade bookmarks, and offers to volunteer. With the donation, Emma revitalized the bookstore. She repaired the creaky floors, restocked the shelves with new titles, and transformed the back room into a cozy reading nook for children. Weekly book clubs returned, poetry nights filled the air with words, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee welcomed visitors. The bookstore became more than just a shop. It became a gathering place for thinkers, dreamers, and storytellers. Months later, on another quiet afternoon, the door chimed again. Morgan Freeman stepped inside, this time greeted by the hum of conversation and the sound of laughter. Emma met him at the door, a wide smile on her face. "You did this," she said. Morgan shook his head. "You did this. I simply reminded you of your strength." He stayed for tea, chatting with patrons and signing copies of his favorite novels. Morgan Freeman's quiet generosity had sparked something far greater than financial relief. His belief in the power of stories and the resilience of a community had restored faith in more than just a bookstore. It had reignited hope. And in every corner of Willow and Pine, from the shelves of classics to the walls adorned with thank you notes, his kindness lived on. For Emma and the town of Savannah, it was a story they would tell for generations.